Well, these days I'm very much in the assemblage mood. So today I want to alter this violin. And on the side I will also try my hand at this little guitar. Now the guitar you can find at the dollar store, but the violin was a lucky find. It's a lot bigger, it has a lot more details and dimensions. I will start by adding black gesso to both of these. They will at least need 2 coats each, and then of course they need to dry, and in the meantime I can start working on some of the elements I want to use to decorate my violin. So I had this one lonely wooden die cut laying around. I cut it down so I can use the smaller pieces to decorate. Now it always takes me a little time to get started with these decorations. And here you can see me fiddling until I find the right placement. The third piece over there I will actually use on the guitar. Now the top of the violin has a curve, so in order for the wooden die cut to lay flat, I soak it in some water, just a few minutes, and then I glue it onto my violin using tacky glue. And then I secure it with some balloons. You can of course use any kind of stretchy materials or even rope to keep it in place. And the wood will then conform to the shape and will hopefully lay flat when it's dry. Now I use the same method when I use wood die cuts on a bottle, and it usually works if the wood is not too thick. So here you can see that it bent nicely. Now it does have a little bump, but that's where I cut the die cut apart, and I will cover that up later. And next I add some dimensional paint dots, just for some subtle texture, and then wherever I put the die cuts I will add more embellishments. That way the top is a little more balanced and not overloaded. But first to my substrate. As you can see, it's just a wooden thingy, not sure what you call it. It's made out of 4 boards in the front that has a hanger, and I want to use this coffee dyed sheet music to decorate it a bit. So as you can see here, I use a candle to burn the edges to just make the look a little more interesting. Please be careful, don't burn your fingers. As soon as it was burnt, I took off all the dead pieces of paper and then used my Mod Podge mat to glue it to my wooden substrate. Now the notes were definitely a perfect size for these slats, and after I had them all glued down, I sealed them all by using antique Mod Podge. Basically it is just a little bit yellow, and it will protect the base here. Then I can set this aside and start working on my violin again. I start by adding some of those bling strips. I use them regularly because they are very nice for narrow little places, and they are self-adhesive, but I always add a bit of tacky glue just so they stick for sure. Now after these are secured, I start working with my metal pieces, which are mostly broken jewelry bits and bobs, and I use my E6000 to secure all of those. Now whenever I do these type of assemblages, gluing down all these little metal pieces takes the longest time. But for me, it is also a very enjoyable part. I take my time and I try to find just the right elements to work together, the shapes that complement each other. I often get up and look for more things. I use my little tools you see there to take things apart, to shorten things, whatever I have to do to make everything fit and look just the way I like it. So the time it takes to do so is one of the reasons why I usually don't show my process in full. But today I have captured quite a lot of the first part. I don't think everything is held on video, but I think you get a good idea how I work. Now right here you see me using some glossy accent because there's a little rim right around the edge of the violin, and I want to add some ball chain, and the glossy accent is just a little less messy than E6000 and holds it in place just fine. So it is time to show you what my violin looks like. As you can see, lots of elements have been added, including some texture paste. And as you can see here in more detail, a lot of them are little charms, broken earrings, chain, pieces from necklaces, and so on. Now I also decorated the sides because it gave me plenty of room to do so. And of course it enhanced the look, and again I used everything imaginable what I have in my little stash. I of course also decorated the violin bow. Very simply, it just has one little bling piece, and I added a string all around the heavier part together with some texture paste. And here's the little guitar. I also added all kinds of jewelry pieces, more of the bling strip. I added some gears, some texture paste. I also stenciled some squares on it. I used spacer beads on the neck, and so on. Of course, the guitar was much smaller and didn't give me a whole lot of room, so this is a lot simpler done, and it will be a side project, I would say. The violin is definitely the main project I want to complete today. But sometimes it's nice to work on two projects at the same time. So for the violin, I use another coat of black gesso, which is really my favorite. And here on the guitar, I will use white gesso. Next, you see me mixing my rusty paste together with metallic copper paint and ordinary brown paint to get just the right color I want. And then I use a dry brush and a very light touch to go all over my violin and the bow to bring out all the texture and to really highlight every piece I added to it. I really like this part as well. It's a lot of fun, and I like these subdued colors. I think the black together with this copper brown tone gives it that vintage look, and I just really like it. And you will see later, because the substrate is rather light, it fits together, I think, quite nicely. Now the key to working this color properly on a black background is just to keep that light touch and use very little paint, and to work a little bit with the highlights and the shapes and the deep places on this whole project. And then when it's done, as you can see here, I think it brings out everything so beautifully, and you can see all the elements, and of course the color combines it all and gives it that unified look. Now I always keep my color when I mix it myself for later, just in case I need to do some touch-up. So now to the little guitar. Now when you work with white gesso, you definitely need to put a complete first coat of color with a wet brush, plenty of paint to cover up the white gesso, because white gesso just doesn't look right peeking through, whereas black gesso gives a nice effect. So for the guitar, I used some light green metallic paint first, then some nickel color, then I did some highlights with some dark green paint, and later on, I didn't capture that on video, I also added a little bit of teal here and there, and I made sure that the strings of the guitar were black, so I added some paint to that. So one more look at this thing, and then all I need to do is glue both the violin and the guitar to their substrate. And as soon as that's dry, I will be using E6000. I can show you one more time the finished pieces. So here they are. First, the violin. I'm very happy with the way it came out. I love the color of it. I love the combination with the background. I added a little hanger here, as you can see. And I think this would be a nice piece on anyone's wall, especially a music lover or a violin player. Next, the little guitar. As I mentioned earlier, it's a lot simpler, but I found a fun substrate for it. It's a piece of fence wood I got from my husband's workshop, and it's dyed black in the front. In the back I added a hanger, as you can see, and it has a naturally worn top, which I think is cool. I added those metal corners which have a nickel color which matches the guitar, and yeah, these are my latest two projects, and they will find their way into my Etsy store as soon as I can get my listings up. So thank you so very much for visiting with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you come and see me soon again, and bye bye for now.